Hi.
Hello.
Look at you.
Look at you.
Yes, I do have my
Look
baby
at
strapped to
both
me
of
right now.
you.
It's like a whole doozy.
Oh my,
Bad communication on mine and my husband's part of who had to be where this morning. So I got the baby on me. We're good.
I think that that's adorable.
She's adorable.
Yeah, well,
Little babe.
you're both adorable.
Thanks for doing this. This is fun.
Oh my gosh. Well, I, I appreciate you, first of all, taking time away from momming and lifing and podcasting and being a superstar in general just to talk to me. But um, the fact that you were like, no, I really want to do it I would love for you to do it in drag. I was like,
Yes.
I'm not going to say no to Renee.
Right? Give the goods. No, it's amazing. I love that. Plus, because you had events prior to this, right?
Well, that event got canceled.
Oh,
So,
okay. So I mean,
so
I
I
know I can imagine how much work it is to be prepared for this. So kudos to you, like $1,000,000.
thank you. I woke up and did this all just for you in the beginning.
Oh my gosh. Well, we appreciate it.
So, everyone, I'm Poyet Almar, and this is Renee Paquette. You are joining us on the Wrestling Inc. Interview, and we're just going to dive in. We've already got like a
Sweet.
little fun out of the way there with
Yes.
baby. So I wanted, you've got you've got your infant right there with you, and I wanted to know how being a new mom has changed your perspective, like on dreams, aspirations, career, professionally.
It's kind of it's almost hard to say because I feel like it changes a lot. I mean, she's just about 7 weeks old. And I gave myself 6 weeks maternity leave to just kind of, get my life together, adjust to having the baby, have her and I get in a little bit of a rhythm together, which I feel like we've been able to do that, which is awesome. So now that I'm like resurfacing and getting back to work and getting back in the podcast, and I've got a couple other things coming up that I'm working on. I feel like the wheels have already started spinning really quickly where I'm like, oh God, wait, was I ready for that? Oh my God. So it's cool. And it really thrusts you to hurry up and figure out having a baby and juggling all of these things and trying to book things around when my husband is home so that I can pass the baby off to him. Obviously, we dropped the ball on that today because I've got her strapped to my chest right now. Um, but no, it's really cool. And as I kind of set my sights on other things and new things that I want to be doing and where I kind of see my career going, I definitely don't plan on taking my foot off the gas pedal in terms of that, but it does make you look at things through a bit of a different lens. Because she is first and foremost now. I mean, my career is still important, and I want it is very important for me to maintain working and having a busy schedule and maintaining kind of chasing my own dreams because I want her to see that. I think it's really important for her to see me doing those things and finding a way to make it work because as we do, you make shit work. You just figure it out. You just kind of keep going and you set up appointments and dates and you have a schedule and you just kind of plug along as you're going. It's not easy, but I'm figuring it out as I go.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is that it seems I know that you're not with WWE full time, but sometimes it seems you pop back up for us there. What is your actual status with that company?
I don't work with WWE at all anymore.
Okay.
I left at SummerSlam last year was my final show. I mean, I popped up to do a watch along during WrestleMania, but that was it. I mean, I still have a good standing relationship with WWE. It wasn't, there's no ill will or bad blood or anything like that at
Mhm.
all. It was time for me to move on and time for me to start doing some new things. And within that time, made a baby and got
Yeah.
oral sessions up and running, and yeah, a couple other things that I've got on the back burner that are slowly moving towards the front burner, the burner that we all like to use.
Yeah. So I was just curious because I my understanding was that you were no longer with them and then you did pop up during the watch along, so
Yeah.
that's sort of like, I mean, I love just the fact that um you are able to potentially pop back in when you want to. When you don't want to, you're not obligated. I love that.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's like I mean, so many of my friends are all in WWE. And yeah, it just when it was time for me to go, it was time that I felt to move on and start doing some new things. So yeah, there's definitely no reason for me to not pop up and do stuff or not be a part of stuff if they wanted to reach out and do some stuff. And like you said, it's either it works or it doesn't work and there's no obligation. But yeah, I always have a love for WWE.
You said something that um that just made me think. I'm gonna jump off. I like a good journalist. I have a whole list of notes here and questions, but I think that really when you have a like an actual conversation with people, it's different than like going by your notes, right? So
Of course.
one of the things that you mentioned is that so many of the people that you love, your friends, or still work for that company. And I think that it's weird because fans like must take sides, it feels like, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
you're like, here I'm in this middle. My husband works one place, but my most of my career was somewhere else. And I have a good relationship with them and I have friends there. And like, could you stop? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's what comes to mind.
It can definitely be a lot because I feel like, if you say one thing positively or negatively about either promotion, it seems like you've drawn your line in the sand and that you're like, no, I love this and I hate this, where I'm not like that. It's like there's things that I love and hate about, and I hate's a strong word, love and dislike about, both promotions or any promotion or anything in general. Nothing's just black and white like that. There's all that gray area where I do feel like wrestling fans, they very much so want to take a side. They want it to be us versus them, WWE versus AEW, however you want to kind of look at that. But I think that it's all wrestling and it doesn't have to be that way. And you can watch both. They're all on different nights. You can enjoy all of it and be happy that there's more wrestling to enjoy and that there's different styles to enjoy and different performers. There's so much more to really sink your teeth into, and I think it's so great for everybody. But yeah, it does very much feel like you're either in or you're out, whether it's WWE or AEW.
Yeah, it makes me crazy as
I hate it.
a person who like I enjoy wrestling. I love wrestling, and I'm
Yeah.
not specific to a company, So,
Yeah, it can be frustrating. Like if there's like I see like a headline or something of like Renee said this, and it's like, calm down. It's not, that got misconstrued, or you didn't listen to the whole thing that I said, or whatever. That can be a little bit ridiculous, but people like good headlines, so it is what it is. It's fine.
yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I've noticed from listening to oral sessions, I mean, come on, like right down to the name of it, like your WWE on-screen persona was like really lovable, which you are, and like a bit demure, very like, but there is something about you. If people follow you on social media, or the sheer fact that you're married to John Moxley says that like there's got to be like this wild woman like somewhere behind all this. So tell me about that dichotomy of who you really are and who you've been asked to portray.
Well, one thing that always kind of struck me as or that I sort of felt like I internally struggled with a bit. So before I came to WWE and working in Canada and working on a sports network there, and just a career that I had prior to coming to WWE, was more of like I wanted to tell jokes and I swore a lot and I got to be a little bit more rough around the edges. Where when I started with WWE, it was like, no, we want you in like a blazer and a sheath dress, and you are a broadcaster. Like they wanted me to be very smooth and
Mhm.
polished and professional and like a woman in that role, where like that's just never really necessarily been what my thing is, where you get to see more of that on oral sessions as the cursing has bubbled back up to the surface, whether I want it to or not. It just kind of inevitably happens. But yeah, I mean, who I was as Renee Young on television is still me. It's just me showing you that version of myself on camera. And with WWE, it's like they want you to be a broadcaster. It wasn't necessarily for me to like be a big personality and get to do all of those things that I would normally do prior. So it was sort of like an interesting juxtaposition for me to kind of figure out, like, how do I give them what they want, but I'm also still doing some of the things that I want to do. And I do feel like we really struck a nice balance with that. Um, of, even just when I got to do like the kickoff panels, or I got to do
Mhm.
Unfiltered with WWE and got to show a little bit more of that side of myself. And even, times on commentary when, you can just like naturally react to things the way that you want to. And yeah, it's just finding a way to strike the balance between those two things. And that's with any job. Some people want you to be a certain way. And as somebody on camera, it's sort of your job to adjust to what those things are, of what somebody wants you to be and how they want you to be portrayed as your character on television. And it does sort of feel like that when you're in WWE. It's not that I was just being me, I was being the character of Renee Young, more or less, even though that was so many shades of who I am. But yeah, now that I'm not doing that, it is nice to kind of to let that like freak flag fly a little bit more and get to be a little bit more of myself. It's funny, I was doing an episode of Oral Sessions the other day. I'm with Stephen Amell, who's got Heels from Arrow, and he's got his wine company. I was like, oh my God, when I first started doing Oral Sessions, my whole plan was that it was going to be, okay, we can have a cocktail, shoot the shit. Like that's what the podcast was going to be more about. But I found out I was pregnant right before I started doing the show. So
Oh
I've
my
not been
gosh.
able to delve into that just yet. I've still just got like, this is actually decaf coffee. So I'm really keeping it together over here.
Yeah, I was you really touched on it, because I was going to ask how it feels to be revealing like a much more significant level and part of yourself on Oral Sessions. I mean, down to having your mom on.
Yeah.
So like it's got to be like so very different, because it's truly Renee Unfiltered.
Yeah, but you know what? I think, like you said, it's like if you're somebody that's followed me on social media, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram, I think that you've been able to see those sides of me over the years, anyways. So I don't think about it that much, to be honest, because even when when I was doing stuff with WWE and uh, being Renee Young, I wasn't really thinking about not showing other sides of myself, I guess. Like I've always felt like I've been pretty transparent about who I am. So being able
Okay.
to do that on Oral Sessions, it's just been fun for me to delve back into that. And it's more so like I just enjoy being able to flex more of like that host muscle again, of like, hey, the show's just mine. I get to do all the questions. I get to kind of decide what goes into the show, what's not going into the show. So it's that side of it that I like a lot more. And even just like with the booking of the guests, like you said, it's like a lot of it is wrestling, but sometimes it's not. I did have on my mom. I've had on other actors. I've got a hockey player coming on. So, we kind of just spread the love around a little bit and just delve into some of the other interests that I have outside of it just being wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that when we were sort of like approaching this interview that I said that I admire so much about you is that you are with Oral Sessions and your social media, which has a tremendous presence for you. Like it feels very strongly to me like you have begun to take, and this is something we hear maybe too often as a gimmick now, but like beginning to take more control of your own narrative within the world of professional wrestling and how people perceive you and the way you present yourself. And I was curious what comes to your mind when you hear a thought like that.
Yeah, because that's not something that I feel like that I'm actively really thinking about. I mean, it is nice now to be able to talk about other promotions. Like if I'm tweeting something about AEW or tweeting something about my husband, something like that. Like I guess like maybe that's a layer that obviously people weren't able to see as much when I was with WWE. So it's nice to just be able to post whatever I want in regards to different wrestling promotions. So that side of it's cool, but I don't really feel like I put too much thought into it otherwise. I mean, it's just I talk about the things that I like, and that's just sort of where I like to keep that. I don't really think about it too much beyond that though.
I there's you talk about being a female broadcaster in WWE and the way in my mind they probably guide you differently than they would your male counterparts. But one of the things that has always troubled me is how I see negativity, I think, directed towards people like Beth Phoenix, who I think is
I
outstanding.
think she's fantastic.
I think she's outstanding and a legend, and other female broadcasters that I don't think that we see necessarily geared or directed towards their male counterparts. So I was wondering if you could talk about how female broadcasters are perceived in the world of professional wrestling and how they are treated as compared to,
Men.
the men.
Yeah, you know what? I will say from my time in WWE, the fan base has always been awesome to me. They were always really great, always really supportive. That did change a bit when I was doing commentary, and that was, that's expected. That commentary seat is just such a hot spot, but I don't think I don't think that criticism is reserved just for the women. I obviously see more of that because I'm in that
Right.
category, so I'm seeing that. But talking to like some of the other men that have been in that position, nobody's safe. Nobody is safe in the wrestling world from the criticisms. That's damn sure. But yeah, I do think that there can be though like a little bit more of a spotlight, but I think that's women broadcasting in sports in general. I don't think that that's just for wrestling. I think that it's something, I think even just for people to adjust to hearing our voices meshed with the men's voices, it's not, their ears not used to it. So I think that alone tips people off to be like, something's different. I don't know if I like this. Different is wrong. Different is weird, that people want to have that negative reaction to it, or can kind of feel that way towards it. Um, and for women, I will say that's different than men is that if you say something that's maybe inaccurate or wrong or whatever, it gets magnified tenfold. Where I feel like if a man does that, they can maybe get away with it a little bit more. Like we have to be a lot more accurate. Our facts need to be right. Cause yeah, I feel like if you make that one misstep, people lose their minds. I think that's getting better over time. And I don't think that the spotlight's on that quite as much anymore. But I've definitely have felt that over the duration of my career, not even just in professional wrestling, when I was covering other sports before as well. It's like you can't mispronounce somebody's name, you can't have a fact wrong, you can't have a stat wrong. But I think that men and women should both kind of live by that rule. It's that's our job out there, is to have that accurate information.
But at the same time, I think that the strong pushback goes to that immediately to that place of like misogyny, like, oh, this is why you cannot have a, you know what I mean? Like, this is why women shouldn't be doing this.
Right. Yeah. And, as much as there are people that might have that mindset and that's the knee jerk reaction is to feel that way, that's a bigger reflection on them, I think,
Amen.
and, how they've been raised and how they want to look at women. But I think the way that we've seen female broadcasters just make leaps and bounds. I mean, whether it's at WWE, whether we're looking at ESPN or Fox Sports or we're NBC, wherever, it's like, there's so many more women taking that main role and really letting their careers flourish. And another thing that I really love about that too is that there's less pressure to be that 25-year-old 120 pounds long blonde hair. Like I think that it's giving more life to female careers in broadcasting, and it's really nice to see that. Because I always felt like when I first started getting into this world that I'm like, man, my shelf life's going to be short. You've only got so long. You hit 35 and you're like ancient. But I don't think that that's the case anymore. And I think somebody like Doris Burke, of course, is somebody to kind of she's created such a path for women in broadcasting to follow behind her. So kudos to her. But as we're seeing more women step in and being able to really hold that spot down. And I like to think of myself as somebody that's been able to do that. Somebody like Beth Phoenix is somebody who's been able to do that, and to just have that. We're tacking years onto our careers now, it feels. And there's something really, really special about that, to not feel that pressure of like, God, I better hurry up and achieve all my goals by the time I'm 30, because then I'm washed up and can't work anymore. And yeah, it's really cool to see people's perspective on that broadening a lot, and giving us more time. Because honestly, most people, men and women, don't hit their stride until they're in their mid 30s. That's when
Of
you're
course.
really like, you have the experience under your belt. You know your voice and your tone, and you know what you want to do as a broadcaster more. So it's nice to really hit that sweet spot and not feel like you got to hurry up and wrap it up just as you're really hitting your stride.
Yeah, I think that alone is something that even when we look at like in-ring competitors, like
Mhm.
male versus female in the world of professional wrestling, you know, we've got people like Bobby Lashley just turned 45, and people would never,
It blew my mind actually. I was like, wait, he's 45.
I know, right? Me too.
Get
Um,
it, Bob.
for real. But you know, nobody would ever say of him or any male that's, you know, 40 years old, like, oh, they're past their prime, they're washed up. Like, no, that's like when people are like, you know, fully invested. And then
Yeah,
with female competitors, they're like, well, you know, she's almost 32.
I know.
Like, it's absurd. It's
It
horrifying.
it really is absurd, especially when you think of like, God, the hard work that goes into like maintain. I don't even. This is my opinion on this. I don't actually have to do any of this, but like these female wrestlers that are, you know, you're getting in your tights and you're making your body look the way that you want it to look. And like that shit is such hard work. And
Mhm.
they maintain it and they look incredible. So for anyone to be like, I don't know, she's getting a little old, like take a seat, take several seats.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like, I mean, like anyone in any career, it's like you once you hit your 30s, that's when you're doing some of your best work. So let's not shoot ourselves in the foot and say that somebody's too old to be doing something when they're in their prime. Actually, prime is not in your 20s anymore. I hate to break it to you, everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure it's ever been in their your 20s. You just have no
Yeah,
idea what the hell's going on. I
for,
think
for sure.
I think what happens is like once you get a little past that, then you actually know what's going on and people can't take advantage of you quite the way they used to. They're like, "Oh my God, you're difficult."
Oh my God. Yes. Oh, the word difficult can S a D. Fuck. Yes. You're too difficult. Like, no, I've just been around and I know my value, I know my worth,
Yeah,
and now it's time to have everyone fall in line with those things rather than just like being continually grateful for the opportunity, which, you know, yes, of course, but there's hard work that goes hand in hand with those things as well.
precisely.
Yeah.